Council meeting for Monday, 2011, May 2nd, commencing at 7:30 here at the Shaw Auditorium. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. And Ms. Harrison, if you'd like to walk us through any late items, please. Thank
you, Your Worship. Add item 6B, delegations pertaining to agenda items. Mr. George Hansen regarding DP 713 at 295 Selby Street. Move item 7, Mayor's Report to precede item 5, presentations. Add item 7B, Mayor's Report, announcement City Hall Annex Building. Delete item 4, 762 Townsite Road from Staff Report 11G, Property Maintenance Bylaw 1990, number 3704. Replace pages 218, 219, item 11J, Staff Reports, Fire Protection and Life Safety Bylaw. Add item 11L2, Staff Reports, Financial Plan Amendment, and Tax Rates Bylaw Report. Add item 14E, Introduction of Bylaws, Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw 2010, number 7121.01. Add item 14F, Introduction of Bylaws, Tax Rates Bylaw 2011, number 7125.
Thank you very much. Before we go into an adoption of the agenda, Councillor Unger, did you want to make a motion?
I'd like to move that item 20A be moved up to become item 6C. Second.
Okay, moved and second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. That'll be Ms. Linda Avis will be brought forward at that point. Could I ask Councillor Sherry, did you want to make a comment now, please? Ron.
Under late items, Mr. Chairman, we're getting to, on May the 4th, 124 years ago, or May the 3rd, 124 years ago, we lost 150 miners in the big mine disaster here, and I've been requested to bring forward a motion to have the mast or the flag flown at half-mast tomorrow in commemoration of those, so I'll be bringing that under other competent business.
Okay, thank you. Sorry?
As long as people don't interpret that to be in relation to the federal election.
I don't think a mine disaster, when you lose 150 miners in one incident 124 years ago, one just has to look at what the population was of the community in those days. It's nothing to do with municipal, provincial, or federal politics.
No, good point, Councillor Sherry, and thank you for reminding us of that tragedy. Could I ask for an adoption of the minutes, please? The agenda as amended. As amended. And was there a seconder for that one, then? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And now for the adoption of the minutes.
Move this circulated.
Seconder, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Under the Mayor's report, the first thing I wanted to mention is that today, well actually yesterday, was the 25th anniversary of the Prince of Wales officially declaring Nanaimo as the harbour city. And to that extent, what I've done, and I'm not sure if the camera will be able to pick it up or not, but this is a enlarged photocopy from our guest book in the state of Nanaimo, and this contains his signature of the late Princess Diana and Prince Charles when they visited Nanaimo, and it just says the visit of the Royal Highnesses, the Prince and Princess of Wales, officially designated Nanaimo as the harbour city, 1986, May the 1st, and it bears both his signatures. So what we're going to do, I'm going to present this to the mayor at the time, and he was going to be up tonight, and we were hoping to have former Mayor Graham Roberts appear here, and we have a plaque we're going to present him with, but unfortunately at the last minute he announced he wasn't able to attend, so we still wanted to make this notice public of the 25-year anniversary, and we will hold his plaque for a later time when he's going to come up. And it's my understanding he's offered to buy me coffee if the minutes would reflect that, in case he tries to renege. And And the next thing I want to bring in is as a news release. It's dated today's date, Monday, 2 May 2011. Replacement building for the City Hall Annex. The City of Nanaimo has awarded an $11.875 million design build contract to ICI Windley to construct a replacement building for the City Hall Annex. The overall project budget is $15,700,000, and that includes contingencies, moving, furniture, and equipment. Funds for the project will come from money set aside in the budget for the annex upgrade. Reserves, short-term borrowing of up to $4 million. The short-term borrowing will generate a one-time tax increase of approximately 1.1% starting in 2012 and ending in 2016. After an extensive analysis of 15 proposals from the private sector submitted in response to a public call for expressions of interest, it was determined that the ICI Windley provided the best solution. The new building, which will be located at 411 Dunsmuir Street, which is directly behind the existing City Hall, will be built to a LEED Gold standard and should be completed by the fall of 2012. For further details, please refer to the attached backgrounder, and we have that information available. We'll now move into presentations, and Mr. Clemens, Director of Finance, to provide a PowerPoint presentation regarding the 2011-2015 financial plan. Mr. Clemens, you're on.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is just a very brief presentation to update Council and the public on the changes that have been made to the financial plan since it was originally passed in January. So the overall budget status of the plan is it's now a 2.5% overall property tax increase, which translates into a 3.6% residential. There's clearly a problem with that slide because it's only 2.5% commercial and it's down 18% industrial. There's a 5% increase in water rates and 1% increase in garbage and recycling that's already been implemented, and there are no changes in sewer rates this year. So this slide provides the whole set of increases over the 5-year period. For the blended increase, which is the average increase for all the classes, as we said, is 2.5% in 2011, 3.2% in 2012, 2.7% in 2013, 2.8% in 2014, and 5.6% in 2015. For the years 2011 to 2013, you can see that the increases for residential are not the same as they are for the average, and that is as a result of Council's policy to shift some taxation from major industry to residential, and that's a shift of about $575,000 a year. So right now, if all goes according to plan, the shift will be completed in 2013, and that's why after that period of time, the rates increases are the same across all the classes. I should point out, just for clarity, that these rates are the City of Nanaimo's rates only. These are the rates that are only pertain to the City of Nanaimo's budget. We have not included any increases for the regional district, school, hospital district, or any of the other taxing authorities. We're just getting the last of that information the last couple of days, so we'll try to provide Council an update on the total overall percent property tax increase in the next couple of days. So how has this changed over the period of the plan? Well, the first line, the top line of this shows in 2010 what we told Council would be the property tax increase for 2011 when we looked at it last year in 2010. So we were originally projecting a 4.7% increase for taxes, and this is the average rate, the blended rate, in 2011. When we came to Council in January, we had 3.2% as being the blended rate. Since then, there's been a number of changes to the budget, and we've been able to reduce the overall tax increase from 3.2% to 2.5%. And I'll give some more information about why that was able to be done. As you can see, in future years, there are some that, other than 2012, were basically what we told Council they would be in 2013 and 2014. And I will explain that in just a minute as well. So what's changed since January? Well, we've increased the budget for the by-election that we did not know was going to be needed when we first put the budget together last August and September. We've increased it for an external review of contracted services. We've put in an estimate of $75,000. We're not sure whether that's the right amount or not, but we had to put an estimate in the budget. We've increased it for a fire pump for the Port Authority boat and the Pacific Sport Grant. And all of these issues have been before Council, so the Council should be aware of these 4 issues. We've also managed to reduce the budget for a number of things. So we have additional revenue from new construction. When we got the final figures from BC Assessment, we were able to increase our estimate from $1.2 million to just over $1.4 million in revenue from growth from new construction within the city. We were able to reduce our municipal insurance authority insurance premiums by $86,000. So the bill that came in February was much less than what we'd predicted. We have some additional revenue in the budget from Regional Park Service Agreement. So this is the agreement that we have with members of the Regional District of Nanaimo, where we share services back and forth and share some costs back and forth. And we were able to reduce construction costs in Bowen and Quarterway in 2011 by $312,000. So all of these have allowed us to reduce the taxation from 3.2 to 2.5. There's a couple of changes that have no net effect on taxation that may be of interest to council and to some others. We've deleted the Bastion Parkade parcel tax due to suspended debt. So the debt we originally borrowed on that has been paid off. We don't need to make any more payments. And that will impact the downtown commercial properties that are currently paying $192 a year for each parcel on their property taxes. There's an exit fee for Ocean View properties. So these are some properties that have been removed from the private managed forest land reserve. And because they have been put into a different property tax classification in 2011, they will be subject to a higher level of tax. So there's been an exit fee that's been calculated. We've put it in the budget as a revenue, but we've immediately transferred it into the general capital reserve. The actual amount is being disputed, and we're not sure whether we'll collect $300,000 or something less, but no matter what it is, we will put it into the reserve, and it'll be available for council to spend on future capital priorities. And as the mayor has just announced, we have added a City Hall annex of $15.7 million to the budget, and it is $11.7 million from reserves and up to $4 million in short-term borrowing. This is added in 2011 and 2012, but it has no impact on property taxation in 2011. So if we were able to reduce it, why was there any increase at all in 2011? Well, council has seen this slide before. This is basically the same information that was presented a couple of months ago. The major sources of the increases for property taxes in 2011 are related to additional services. So we've added 5 additional RCMP general duty officers and 2 police support services staff. And this is in the budget every year, basically, for about 5 years. Over a 5-year period, we'll be adding, I believe it's 24 RCMP officers and 10 support staff. Even though we reduced the Bowen Quarterway project budget, there's still $1.3 million in the budget in 2011, which is one of the major reasons for the increase in 2011. We finally have a full year of 24/7 staffing at Fire Hall number 4 on Cranberry Avenue. So the net effect of these 3 items alone, the property tax increase in 2011 would have been about 0. So they're equal to about 2.4% overall property tax increase. The average increase is 2.5%. So just some members' information for people watching at home. And this is not new information to most council members, but just it's probably worth reminding people before they get their tax notices. So property taxes are equal to assessment times tax rate. So there's 2 elements to that formula. So under the assessment element, we have a number of we have an assessment that's determined by BC Assessment. Under the tax rates element, we have a number of agencies who are allowed to set tax rates or provide the city with a requisition for funding. So of this, the City of Nanaimo is one of a group of organizations that we collect taxes for. So the city acts as a tax collection authority for the school district, the RDN, the Nanaimo Regional Hospital, the library, the Municipal Finance Authority, and BC Assessment. So on a typical residential property, about 60% of the money that we collect from a property tax notice goes to the city. The remainder goes to these other agencies. And of course, council has no control over how much we collect for those other agencies. So the question that people are interested in right now is how is this going to affect their property? So on a home that's valued at $350,000 in 2011, the average property tax increase of 3.6% would be $62.29. The 5% water increase that was already implemented would be about $15 a year, and the garbage increase would be about $2 a year. So the total increase, which is a 3.6% increase, is about $79.39. Now, this assumes that you would have an average change in assessment, and I'll show you how that differs if you don't. So the average change in assessment was about 5.5%. So this house would have been worth $331,848 in 2010 and $350,000 in 2011. So what if it doesn't come out exactly the same? So this chart shows 3 separate lines, and this is the same house if it had 3 different levels of assessment change. So in the first box, you can see for that house, the taxes, the city-only taxes, city and library, in 2010 were $1,722.99. If the property had a 0% assessment change, the assessment would stay the same. The property taxes would be $1,692, and in fact, they'd be down $30 from the previous year. That's a 1.8% decrease in property taxes. The center line shows the average. So not most properties, but hopefully the average property would have a 5.747% assessment change. It would now be worth $350,000. Its taxes would go up $62.29, which is a 3.6% increase that we tell people is the average change. Now, if the same property had a 10% assessment increase, its assessment would now be $365,000. Its taxes would have gone up $139, which is 8%. So as much as we try to say what the average change is and what the impact is going to be on the properties in the NIMO, it's impossible for us to tell every individual homeowner that they're going to have the average increase or that they're going to have a 3.6% increase. We have no control over the market, and nor in fact does BC Assessment, because all they do is reflect the market value of your home. So people's taxes will fluctuate above and below the average. And the last item I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention, which has been reported recently, is the fact that there is a new addition to the homeowner grant in 2011. So the province has added an additional program that they call the Northern and Rural Area Benefit, which is $200 on top of the existing homeowner grant. So they call this new hybrid grant the Northern and Rural Homeowner Grant. And if you were currently eligible or previously eligible for a homeowner grant of $570, you will be eligible for a grant of $770 in the future. If you are already eligible for the additional grant, which means you're 65 or over in 2011, a widower, or meet certain disability criteria, you would receive a $1,045 reduction from your property tax bill. There are reductions for homes that are valued over $1,150,000. If your home is more than that, then the value of your grant will be reduced. So the schedule. So tonight we have on the agenda for Council's approval 3 readings of the financial plan and the tax rates bylaw. We would hope that on May the 9th we will get final adoption of those bylaws. The statutory deadline for adoption is May the 15th. Which is a Sunday this year, so we would have to get adoption prior to that. Assuming that all happens, property taxes will be mailed around Victoria Day weekend, and your property taxes will be due on July the 4th this year. And Your Worship, that's the extent of my presentation. We will have as much of this information as we can up on the city's website tomorrow, and it'll be there for people to view.
Thank you, Mr. Clements.
Move receipt of the presentation.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We'll move into, I see no questions, into the presentation by Mr. Bill Sims, Manager of Water Resources, and Mr. Bill Harvey, Associate Engineering, to provide a PowerPoint presentation regarding the South Fork Water Treatment Plant design concept for facility layout and appearance.
Thank you, Your Worship. As Council's aware, but for the benefit of the gallery, the Vancouver Island Health Authority in 2008 changed the city's waterworks operating permit to require filtration. This indirectly supports Council's goal of providing safe drinking water as well, which is good. And as Council's also aware, we've been working away over the last 18 months on the preliminary design for the South Fork Water Treatment Plant. And there's a report in this evening's agenda package that provides some background information on that. But Mr. Harvey's presentation will flesh out the details and provide council and citizens with a good visual of what the plant will look like. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Harvey, our project manager with Associated Engineering. and his presentation. And just one final comment, staff would be pleased to hear any comments or input from council on the report. And I'm going to shift.
Okay. Welcome, Mr. Harvey. You're on.
Thank you, Your Worship. As Bill said, I'm going to give you an update on the status of the water treatment plant. We've now neared the completion of the preliminary design. I think the last time that I made a presentation to council regarding the project was on the process selection. That was back in June 2010. And so this is just going to give you an update as to where we are at now that we have nearly completed the preliminary design. So basically, just a quick overview on what I'm going to talk about today. Just a quick summary of what the project objectives are, and then I'll get into a description of the water and the residuals handling treatment processes, the plant siting and the layout and the architectural treatment proposed for the building, and then the updated preliminary design cost estimate, and then finally what the next steps are to take the project to its next stage. So firstly, just a quick review of the project objectives. Basically, the plant is being designed to serve the year 2035 maximum day demand, which is 116 million liters per day. And that's the capacity that it's being designed for. It needs to conform with the regulatory requirements set out by the provincial and federal governments, and so it's being approached on that basis. A robust design and sustainable as well. But really the focus, when I say that, is to minimize liquid waste, minimize the amount of water we're wasting, minimize chemical use at the plant, which was a strong priority, and also to reduce energy consumption as much as possible. And of course, in the long term, we want to reduce the life cycle cost of the project, but we want to do it while still recognizing that there are financial constraints that we need to live within in order to build it. So this next graphic just gives you an overview of the water treatment processes, and I'll just walk you through it fairly quickly. The water comes from your South Fork Dam. That's that dirty drop on the left there that Bill is chasing with the cursor there. It comes into the plant, and it goes through a screening process. There's a coarse and fine screens that it goes through. And then we have provision in the design for pre-treatment chemicals, which are there to enhance the treatment process. Now, as I mentioned in my previous slide, this plant is being designed to minimize chemical use, and the intent is to operate it for most of the year without any pre-treatment chemicals at all. So that's a significant accomplishment, and the treatment process that we selected allows us to do that. But there are times when the water quality in the wintertime becomes difficult and we need those pre-treatment chemicals. It's then taken through a mixing and flocculation process, and flocculation it causes the particles to agglomerate and basically allows for more filterable water. So coming onto the membranes, we have 117 megaliters per day of flow, and we're running that through the membrane process. And this is the same process that Council saw when it came for the tour of the pilot plant back in the winter of 2010. The recovery through the primary membrane is about 92%. In other words, 92% of the water coming to the membrane gets filtered and is ready for chlorination and delivery into the treated water system. That leaves a reject water, which is the dirty waste from that, of 9 megaliters per day. Traditionally, we would just send that to a residuals management process that, return the supernatant water to a stream or back to the head end of the plant, and then the residuals handled through a sludge dewatering process. However, what we've incorporated into the design of this plant is a secondary membrane process, and basically what we're doing is we're taking that reject water, we're running it through another membrane, and then recovering 85% of that, which is 8 megaliters per day and putting that into the drinking water system, which now means that we're only rejecting 1 megaliter per day out of that original 117 megaliters per day. So it's a very efficient process. It's a very environmentally friendly process. It's going to reduce the amount of waste that we get from the plant. The other thing that I'd like to point out to you is the siphon design that we've incorporated into the facility. This is a fairly unique approach. It allows us to design the plant to operate without pumps on the downstream side of the plant by locating the clear well at a low enough elevation, which our site allows us to do. We're able to eliminate any kind of pumping on the downstream side of the water treatment plant, and again results in reduced energy use in the long term and the cost of providing those pumps. So that gives you a bit of an overview of the water treatment process. I'll now get into the plant siting and then into the layout of the plant. The plant site is located on South Fork Road, just about a kilometer and a half north of the intersection with Nanaimo River Road. The site is a triangular parcel that you can see on the right-hand side there, approximately 27 hectares. The great feature about this site is the topography of it. It slopes downhill from an elevation, drops about 30 meters from the north end of the site to the south end of the site, and it really allowed us to site the plant to take advantage of the hydraulic gradient coming in your system, again to reduce the amount of energy loss through the treatment process and thereby making it very energy efficient. It's a treed site. The design is going to try and minimize the amount of tree clearing required. We've located the plant so there's a significant buffer between the plant and the associated facilities and the subdivision to the south of the plant. And so that basically provides you an overview of the siting of the plant. Now I'll get a little bit into the layout of the treatment facility. This is a plan view of the proposed layout of the plant, the main floor of the plant. The access to the plant, if you're looking at this plan, north is straight up. You will approach the plant from the west side, and that's a public parking area that will be located to the west of the plant. We've designed it to incorporate a fence to fence in that service yard. The expectation is that there will be school tours and so on, and that's really a safety provision incorporated into the design to, if you have school children and so on, we don't want them getting into the service yard where there's heavy truck traffic and so on moving materials around. So as we move around the site, we move to the south. That major block right in there is the water treatment complex in there, varying shades of blue to demonstrate the stage of the treatment process. As we move to the northeast corner of that major block, that's the residuals handling area in there, and that's where the waste products from the treatment process will be processed and handled on site. And then to the north, there's a separate building which will have basically workshops and storage located in them. So that gives you a plan view of the plant, but what you really can't tell by looking at that is how deep the facility is. And this is one of the things, by incorporating this siphon design, from the bottom of the structure to the highest point of the building is approximately 20 meters, and you don't really realize that until you look at this. So this is a three-dimensional view. We've done the preliminary design using a three-dimensional CAD tool, and actually we've provided this model to this 3D model to the city so they can get a better understanding of the operational requirements, do walkthroughs through the plant and so on, and see what's really going to be involved in terms of the layout and the operation of the facility. At the front, which is the south end of the facility, is the deepest portion of the plant, and this is the siphon gallery in here, and that's about 10 meters, 2 levels below the main level of the plant. The intermediate level above that, which Bill has got his cursor pointed at right there, is the level where all the process tankage and all of the major piping is located under the main slab there. And then the main level level is the main operations level. That's where most of the work takes place and where you can see the actual water treatment processes occurring. These are open tanks, so some of the tanks are open so that you can actually see what is happening with the water. The next level above that is where we have washrooms, training rooms, the water treatment laboratory, and then some centrifuge equipment in the residuals handling area to allow the solids that are produced from the residuals handling process to be dropped by gravity into truck bins for hauling off site. So that just gives you an understanding of the size of the facility. Just to get a handle on how big that is, it's about 60 meters in length and about 40 meters wide, just to give you an idea of the size of the facility. So in terms of the architectural treatment, this is an elevation of the west side of the plant, which is the side that the operators and the public will approach the plant from. We've incorporated economical, low-maintenance materials into the architectural treatment. We've used this blue ceramic glazed block, which signifies clean water. The other materials generally they're typically used for commercial and industrial construction, metal-clad panels, and then concrete, and then some precast concrete as well. To the left of the main entranceway there, that's the fencing that I had mentioned earlier, which is just there as a safety provision to sort of separate the main operational trucking areas and equipment moving areas from the general public. So that's the sort of the west elevation. This is the north elevation, and this is looking at the plant right inside that working yard that I was talking about. And what you see on the sort of the right-hand side is the accesses to the various chemical feed rooms along there. As we move along to the west, you get that's a service entrance, and then that is where the solids are handled right there. Trucks can back in there, have the solids from the residuals management process dumped into them, and the rest of that is all of the residuals handling area. And as you can see, as you can tell from this, residuals handling is a significant part of any water treatment project, but we've really been able to downsize it through this approach that we've taken using primary and secondary membranes. So this is an architectural rendering of what the plant will look like, and you can see the sloping site there and how it will fit in. And then it's a heavily treed site right now, and the intent, as I said earlier, is to minimize the tree clearing that we're going to do on the site, basically to minimize the impact on the surrounding area and to maintain those buffers with the surrounding properties. So that gives you an idea of the architectural treatment that is being applied to the plant. This is an updated preliminary design cost estimate. We have off-site pipelines which interconnect the site to your main water supply lines, which are located parallel to Nanaimo River Road, a kilometer and a half to the south of the site. So there's about $7 million for that. For the civil site works, for the membrane equipment, and for the main water treatment building, including the residuals handling areas, we have about $40 million for all of those facilities. On top of that, we've included an allowance for inflation and a contingency allowance, about 6% for inflation and a 15% contingency allowance, totaling $10 million. And then engineering and then some indirect project costs, which are off-site costs, such as bringing in BC Hydro power supply and other off-site services, of $8 million, bringing the total capital cost to $65 million. So that gives you a summary of the layout of the plant and the costs that are projected for it now. So where do we go from here? Well, the next step is to complete the land acquisition process, firstly, and that is in progress and it's nearing completion. And then we have also, the city has recently applied to the regional district for zoning approval, and once that's complete and other associated permitting, we expect that to be complete complete by early summer 2011. The first thing that we need to do before we can design the plant is we have to invite proposals for the membrane equipment, because until we know what membrane equipment and who the supplier is going to be, we can't really lay the plant out to a high level of detail. So we will be inviting proposals from pre-selected vendors. We've identified those vendors for it's fairly specialized equipment, and there's a short list of vendors who can provide it and who have a proven track record with this equipment. We will then evaluate and award the equipment supply, and then follow that with a proof testing process to make sure the equipment meets the specification requirements that we've set out for the project. Then we can get into the detailed design, which will occur from July 2011 until June 2012, and in order to be ready for tendering construction in the fall of 2012, and leading to a plan to construct the facility during 2013 and 2014. So we've got lots of work ahead of us, but we're making very good progress. We're quite pleased with the participation of the city in developing the project to the point that it's at right now, and so that completes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. We do have some questions for you, so don't dash away too quickly. I do want to point out that we want to acknowledge the help and cooperation from the province of British Columbia in the acquisition of the land, and also Chief Douglas White III, who was very supportive in our application, and it moved it along quite well. One question I had before we see some others here, the projected membrane equipment cost was shown as approximately $9 million, and I'm guessing what would the life of the membrane be? Is this a one-time purchase? How regularly would it have to be replaced? And
that's a really good question. Membrane equipment does have a fixed life. Now, when we say the membrane equipment, it's a package. It includes the membrane equipment. There are all kinds of residual processes that go along with this. There's the chemical cleaning equipment, there are pumps, there are compressors, there's piping involved in the package as well. So it's not just the membranes themselves that you're paying for. Now, the membranes themselves do have a fixed life. The vendors that we are dealing with for this project guarantee the life of the membrane for 10 million years, that'd be newfangled technology. 10 years is what's guaranteed. So when we projected the operation and maintenance costs, and when we did the life cycle assessment to compare various treatment processes, we took that into account, that equipment is going to have to be replaced on a 10-year cycle. Now, I don't envision that 10 years down the road you're suddenly going to pull all the equipment out and replace it. It'll happen over a longer period of time and on a graduated process. The one thing that will happen with membrane equipment, there's always new products coming out, and the newfangled Z2000 membrane will probably come out in 5 years and will be able to handle more water and maybe more efficiently. We don't really know. So that's one thing we do have to keep in mind with this.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Okay, we've got some questions for you. Councillor Sherry.
To you, Mr. Chairman, at the beginning of your presentation, you identified that this project is being speared on because of, is it the provincial government or VHA that is making these requirements for this venture?
Yeah, there are regulatory requirements. The federal government has the guidelines for Canadian drinking water quality, which set out certain requirements that they would like to see implemented in the provinces. The actual regulations are set out by the individual provinces, in our case the province of BC, and that locally is looked after by Vancouver Island Health Authority. So they have their 43210 drinking water objective, and that's what sets out the requirements for the water quality objectives that we've used for this plant.
Well, you know, there's two ways of looking at it from my perspective, is that you got the senior levels of government telling the junior member of government what's the requirements and what the qualifications and that you need to do. But have we heard as to federal funding and provincial funding on a one-third on this project?
Your Worship, Funding was received, or notification of funding was received in April of 2009. And while we requested in the order of $32.5 million towards the project cost, we were successful in receiving 17.8, which was significantly more than we expected, but it's not certainly the two-thirds funding that we've seen on other projects. However, the project is funded to the almost $18 million.
Yeah, and I think, Mr. Simmons, too, that $18 million is approximately $9 million from the province and $9 million from the federal government, too.
But the whole thing is that you're projecting now a $65 million to $70 million project, and they've seen fit to give us $18 million for it. And as I say, it goes back to the taxpayer here that, we're increasing our water costs by 5%. Okay, so it's something that in the years to come on, that there may be a need for a higher increase in water rates than the current 5%. So it's just a heads up for everybody out there.
Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Harvey, for a very interesting presentation. At the beginning of your presentation, you indicated even after a double filtration process, or double membranes, that we'd still have 1 megaliter of residual a day, and that residual will be disposed of by truck. Okay, that's what I understood.
Okay.
And then how is it disposed of from there? Where is it taken?
Yeah, there's 1 megaliter per day of water that's fairly concentrated with solids. So the residuals management process separates the solids from the liquid fraction. So the solids are concentrated, and then they're literally trucked to the landfill, the regional district landfill. And then the liquid portion, we've got a couple of options for it, and we're still evaluating what we can do on this, but the primary option is to run that water back to the head end of the plant and run it back through the treatment process, mix it with the water coming into the plant so that we're reusing it. Now, there's some issues with this because of the coagulant in the water, and I'm not going to get into a long discussion about this, but if that doesn't work, there is one other option that we have had some brief discussion on, and that might be just returning it to one of the streams. As long as the water quality is there, that is, it may actually enhance the quality of the water in the stream. So we're looking at both of these options, and the preferred one is just to return it to the head end of the plant and to reprocess the water. So that there's basically the objective has been zero liquid waste from the plant off-site.
Good, thank you. And just if I could have a follow-up, Your Worship, in layman's terms, could you define how much mass is 1 megaliter?
Oh, 1 million liters. Bill told me to say that, and I forgot to. But a megaliter is 1 million liters.
That's not going to be the entire solids that will be trucked away, though. It'll be a bin.
No, the amount of solids that'll be trucked away on an average day would be about 1 truckload.
Or less.
Yeah, it depends on which day it is.
Okay, Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Mr. Harvey. I need a bit of a refresher. When way back in 2010, in the winter, I believe, when we selected the membrane system over 2 others, there were 3.
That's right.
I was under the understanding that the purchasing of the membrane system itself is more expensive than the other 2 options that we had.
That's right.
But then I have a question about energy. You mentioned in your presentation about reduced energy costs, and I have kind of lost the handle on why that is as opposed to the other 2 that we rejected. Could you make a comparison for me?
Okay. I wasn't comparing it to the other 2 processes when I made this comment today. There's 2 ways to design a membrane system. One incorporates using a siphon, which is a fairly innovative approach, and it's been done a couple of other times in North America, but it's fairly new. Conventionally, you have pumps on the downstream side of the treatment process to be able to pump the water into the system, because you're pulling the water through them, you're sucking the water through the membranes, and that's why it's required. Your site and the topography, the selection of this site allowed us to use this siphon approach, which allowed us to eliminate the use of those pumps. So that's what I was referring to. When we go back to comparing it to the other treatment processes, I think when we did the original analysis, the energy use of the membranes versus the other processes, they were fairly similar. There's not a big difference. So that wasn't the big driver. Was the reduced chemical use. The membranes, the chemical use is significantly lower than the other treatment processes, and that was a big plus for the membrane process.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kett.
Worship, man, I need a drink of water.
Okay, time's up.
Thirsty. Is this system in practice any other place?
Yes. The membrane technology is well proven. It's probably been in operation now for, I would say, 15 years, something like that. We have a very good understanding of how membranes work, so that part of it is very well proven, and they're changing all the time. They're advancing the technology all the time. It's the really evolving part of the water treatment business. The siphon is something that's a little different.
That was my next
There are some other plants that they've used this. It's simply hydraulics. If you can create a siphon, it's no different than having a pump, but you need the topography to be able to do it, and so that's why we're using that approach. The design team did go for a tour of one of the plants that is operating using the siphon design, so we did develop some understanding of one that in Oregon, actually, where this is being done.
Okay, thank you. Follow-up too. This is a 20-year plant life then, basically, from 2014, 2015. Okay, this is what Mother Nature does on its own, and that's what this plant's recreating, clean water. Am I correct?
That's right.
Vancouver Island Health Authority has demanded that we do this, which I think is one of the most poorly managed organizations in the world, but that's beside the point. What other costs are related to this project, i.e., is there other pipe-related costs? And what about number one reservoir for us? What costs are related to that? Because we're at I thought it was 60 million, and now it's 65. And it was 60 only back in winter of 2010, which isn't that long ago. So it's at 65 now. And what other costs related to this project? I'm saying, massive head pressure downstream. Is there any problem with pipe related or pipe to be maintained in another contract? And what about number one reservoir? I guess that's to you or to the staff.
Well, with the water treatment plant, the costs that I've shown are the costs, all of the costs related to the water treatment plant project. We updated the cost estimates quite recently, so this is fairly new, and we've taken into account things like inflation, and we have a contingency built into it. So everything related to the water treatment plant itself is included in that cost estimate, but it doesn't include anything related to your system like number one reservoir or other improvements that you may require to your distribution system over the years, although I'm not sure that there's anything other than number one reservoir that would have any relationship to the water treatment plant.
So the access pipes to this point, the new piping system, and the exit pipes are all planned?
They are included in that cost, yes.
Perfect. One other thing, just a statement, if water's going back into the river, it's not may improve it, it must improve it, or it doesn't go in.
Fair point. Fair point.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for your information. Earlier in your presentation, you mentioned that one of the strengths of this was to minimize the amount of water that we are wasting. Could you just elaborate on that for me? Is it the water through the treatment process that we that we will save or not waste?
That's right, yeah. We selected a process, again, that we would minimize whatever liquid waste there was in treating the water. And so that's why we picked the membrane process. Typically, with a water treatment process, you waste about 5 to 10% of the water, because of the fact that you're pulling things out of the water, you're processing the water, you have to reject a certain amount of it and do something with that water. So the way that we've approached this is we've really tried to address that issue, and by providing a secondary membrane system, so that the only amount of water that we're dealing with through our residuals handling process is at maximum day demand is 1 megaliter per day, or 1% of the total flow going through the plant, whereas typically you would be looking at 5 to 10% of the flow going through the plant.
Which certainly isn't very efficient. So when we speak about the membrane and a 10-year life cycle, and this is, as you alluded, is approximately the membrane process, or the membrane component has been utilized for about 15 years. For a membrane replacement of this size, what estimate could you give us if we were today to replace a membrane without the pumps and without all those other accessory items? What would it cost to replace a membrane in today's dollars?
To replace all of the membranes in the plant?
Well, when we talk about the membrane that has a 10-year life cycle.
Yeah.
So whatever has a 10-year life cycle?
Yeah, it's about $2 million to replace all of the membranes in the plant. There are, I think, 2,200 modules in the plant, and so you would be replacing those. And we did get that costing confirmed as part of our budget preparation, and so that's what the number is. So that's to replace all of the membrane equipment. If you had to replace it all over a 10-year cycle, it's about $2 million, which works out to about $200,000 per year.
And what's the original cost of the membrane only?
The original cost of the membrane package is about $9 million.
So for about 25% over 10 years is what it's going to cost us to maintain this membrane component specific.
The replacement?
The original?
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Unger.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mine is very plain and simple. You mentioned a haul away of 1 truckload. Where's that stuff going today? No, where is it going today? Are we drinking it or what?
Yeah, well, it's probably, I don't know what you do with when you clean your screens at the water processing center. I'm not sure what you do with that, but...
Some of the material is screened. Some of the coarser stuff is screened currently. Otherwise, it's either settling, it's mostly settling in the pipes and the transmission mains between the dam and the city.
Yeah, but it is going through the system.
Going through the system.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. I see no further questions. Thank you very much for your time. Very interesting presentation.
The presentation.
Second, all those in favor? Those carried. We're going to go into delegations, but I thought just I'd take a quick moment here to give anyone in the audience that those at home probably have the luxury of being able to watch television, but at this, and this is extremely unofficial, but the polls show that the Conservatives are leading in 165 polls, the NDP in 102, Liberals in 32, and the Parti Québécois in 4. Very unofficial, and we accept no responsibility whatsoever for the accuracy of the information we've provided here. So the next thing is delegations pertaining to 2011-2015 financial plan.
My name is Fred Taylor of 204 Emery Way. In the presentation of the financial officer, we heard that we could have zero taxes, except there was a $2.5 million expenditures, extra firemen and RCMP and a few things. The last Finance and Policy Committee meeting, there was $2.7 million left from 2010 operations for freebie, our money. It's a political decision here, in my opinion. It's an election year, and you've put them to reserves. the beginning of every year, you settle on what amount of money is to go to reserves. Why do we need to add our free money at the end of the year? And in addition to these, when we could have a zero taxation year. Or, as the only member of council spoke up at that meeting, Councillor Bestwick suggested solving some sewer problems in the city. But then it fell on deaf ears, and it's gone to reserves. Even another $372,000 into this place to pay off some sort of a sewer fund for the Port Nanaimo Center building. I think we need careful consideration or reconsideration when you've got excess money in hand, and it's more than what could reduce us to a zero taxation year, an election year, that you're not considering that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. The next delegation, I see no further delegations concerning the 2011-2015 financial plan, and so we'll move into the next delegation is Mr. George Hanson, Insight Developments regarding DP 713 for 295 Selby Street. And just as kind of a notice, we'll then have Ms. Avis, if you'll, once Mr. Hanson's finished, we'll have you follow him, please. What's that?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you about our proposal for 295 Selby Street. As you know, we've been working on behalf of our client, Longwood Station Ltd., to build a microbrewery on Selby Street on the old Share Care site. And we started this process hoping that we could save the 13,000 square foot Share Care building, but when we got into it, it was quite frightening, actually, the level of decay. We weren't sure we wanted to be walking around the building at certain points. The good news on that, though, is that even though we couldn't salvage the building, a fair portion of the materials, a lot of old-growth timber, etc., was salvaged in the process. And any of you that are looking for some big beams can find them at Demex up in Arrington-Coombs area. What we're proposing to build is a microbrewery building that is about 6,400 square feet in its gross size, which is roughly half the size of the building that it's replacing. And you'll notice that there are two variances being requested. One is the height of the building. The height of the building is measured from the average grade on the sidewalk will be just over 32 feet high. The building that it replaces was 30 feet high, and across the street the Occidental pub building is approximately 38 feet high. So just to give you a sense of what we're doing with the height. So the building mass itself is about 35% smaller than the building that it's replacing. And in conversation with city staff, and they can correct me on this if I've erred in any way, but the whole concept of limiting the height measured from the sidewalk to 30 feet was kind of anticipating a full block, a full zero lot line building with a flat roof where you'd have 30 feet across, and they didn't want anything going up above that because that's quite a blocky structure. This building will look a lot like the old building that it's replacing with the standard sort of gabled roof. So even though at the tip of it it's 2 feet higher than the building that it's replacing, the scale of it from the street is actually quite a bit lower because you're down at only about 20 feet on the ends. The other variance is the the variance requested for a larger space for the operation of the brewery. In the C25 zone, a microbrewery is a permitted use. There was a number put to the size of the brewery at 3,000 square feet for the operational space of the brewery. Again, I've been told in conversations with staff that this number is not a number that had a lot of substance or meaning to it. It was just a number that was identified at the time of the writing of the zoning because someone at that time who had a small brewing operation was thinking of doing something in the space they had. We've researched extensively into microbreweries, identified 4 or 5 existing microbreweries on Vancouver Island, and all of them are operating in about 5,000 to 6,000 square feet. And an interesting thing that I've learned in this process is that you can brew quite a lot of beer in a very small space. The brewing equipment itself only occupies maybe 500 or 600 square feet, but the space that's needed is in order to be able to store that beer in fermentation tanks and in cold storage. So even the operational space of a brewery is probably two-thirds is really storage in large stainless steel tanks or in a cooler. The breakdown of the use of the building actually is that the actual brewing operation would occupy about 3,400 square feet. There's about 740, 750 square feet of retail area. 350 square feet of the gross space is actually used for a loading bay that's inside the building, and so that's using up some of the space. And there's about 1,900 square feet of office and storage. So the actual fact is that the microbrewery itself is operating in about 3,400 square feet. And I was looking at a very similar operation that's in Comox, a relatively new building. I think it's about 2 years old for the Siganor Brewing Company. And they have a building that is about 5,200 square feet. Their loading bay is on the outside, so that doesn't impact that. And they have about 400 square feet of retail space, about 1,700 square feet of office and storage kind of space, and the brewery operation itself is about 3,000 square feet. So we appreciate your giving consideration to our request for this variance, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, we have a few. Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Mr. Hanson. This question is to staff, Your Worship, if I may. A C25 zoning bylaw has a maximum floor area of 3,000 square feet. And in a communication to NOCA, of which I have a copy that I just got a few hours ago, they mentioned that staff advised that this is an arbitrary number. A number without substance, and I have some trouble with that. Either something is in a bylaw or it's not in a bylaw, and it's valid or it's not. So could you explain why this is arbitrary?
Mr. Tucker?
Yes, as I think the delegation made the point that the number is based on a proposal that was being put before council at the time that the bylaw was under preparation, and so it's a number that pertained to a particular proposal. So it was based on something. It was not totally arbitrary, but it was based on a specific proposal.
So, if I may follow up, if another enterprise came to you with a C25 zoning that was also going to be way over, more than double, or just about double of the 3,000 that's in the bylaw, you would follow the same road? It's to not have a number in a bylaw with substance is, I find, troublesome. Are there more examples in bylaws than?
The numbers in bylaw are based on the typical case that exists at the time that most bylaws are prepared. So, for example, square footages on commercial uses, when bylaws were prepared in the 1980s or 1990s, didn't anticipate big box retail. no one would have thought of 100,000 square feet or 150,000 square feet of a single big box retail. So the numbers in a bylaw are based on what the average condition is for a particular type of use at the time that the bylaw is prepared. That doesn't anticipate changes in the market and so on. So what I would say is that at the time that this bylaw was prepared, microbreweries operated at a smaller scale than has been found to be economically viable. And the numbers which the delegation has presented are consistent with what our staff research is, that most of these operate now in the 5,000 to 6,000 square foot in other municipalities in BC. So the request that we're receiving tonight is in keeping with similar operations elsewhere in BC.
Okay, thank you for that.
Councillor Gipp.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. All the breweries you say that you've studied are around the 5,000 square foot mark, like Fat Cat Brewery here in town. What's Longwood now?
I have no idea because I haven't looked at the square footage of Longwood. Longwood, of course, is a pub and restaurant, so there's a lot of square footage in there. But the brewery operation is squeezed into a fairly small space. Fat Cat wouldn't fit into this category because they're quite like a micro brewery. But the breweries that we looked at on the island, for instance, include Lighthouse Brewery in Victoria, 6,000 square feet, Siganur Brewery in Comox, 5,000 square feet, Phillips Brewery in Victoria, 6,000 square feet, R&B Brewing in Victoria, 6,000 square feet. There are examples in the States, for instance, where microbreweries are many times as big as that.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Unger.
I noticed, thank you, Your Worship, I noticed the description on it says Longwood Brewery. Does that mean the closing down of the one in the Longwood restaurant?
No, the intention here has been that the Longwood brand over the last 10 years has grown, and the reputation of the beer has grown to the point where they have way more requests from other pubs and restaurants and liquor stores, et cetera, to carry the product than they could possibly produce.
So there'd be two operations. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. In the staff report, it's indicated that you're going to be buying 5 spots as a cash in lieu contribution for a total of $15,000 and not providing parking on site.
Correct.
And yet there's going to be 700 square feet of retail space in the facility. Yes. Do you think that's going to be enough parking for this operation, considering staff and...
A brewery operation has very few staff, so on a day-to-day basis, you'd probably be looking at, 3 people, 6 people when they're bottling or something like that. And the retail operation is really more of a face to the building, to the street. We don't anticipate huge volumes of sales happening there. It's really an office come place where someone that would like to come in and maybe tour through the building or sample the beer or order a keg or something like that. So it's not going to be a high volume operation, and there is street parking right there.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, Councillor Beswick.
Thank you, Chair. Part of my question has been responded to with the amount of staff on a 24-hour cycle. I'm suspecting 7 days a week as it relates to parking. And the question to staff on parking, this isn't a cash in lieu of no parking requirement, as I understand it, or a community contribution. Could you please explain to me the classification for not having, for any requirement to have any parking?
Yes, Your Worship. The terminology in the bylaw is, in fact, cash in lieu parking. And this was a provision that was put into the parking bylaw back in 1995, and it was within an area that's outlined on Schedule D of what's now the parking bylaw. Businesses could purchase in lieu of providing the parking on site. So the provisions have been been in the bylaw since 1995, and we don't see it very often, but in this case, the subject property is within the cash-in-lieu parking area.
So they're not really, in fact, purchasing parking spaces. They're making then a $15,000 cash contribution to parking reserves?
That's correct.
Okay. Just to follow up then, when we speak to, you mentioned that there's approximately 2,000 square foot of administration and office space, which is relatively significant, and a retail space of approximately 700 square feet, which clearly would indicate that there will be staff on site or otherwise. So how many, 3 employees you think you're going to employ at a peak time?
Oh, I mean, I'm not the operator, so I can't speak directly to that, but I do know from conversations with the brewer that it really is like a 3 to 5 person operation, and that, there may be a couple more people when they're busy, bottling and putting stuff out, but generally speaking, it's a very small operation, and the office storage area is 85% storage and one small office.
Thank you. And also, Your Worship, the Design Advisory Panel made some requests for landscape and for exterior cladding that have, as I read the staff report, not all of those recommendations were implemented in its final.
I think pretty well all of them were. I mean, they certainly were. We added features to the building, to the landscaping, et cetera, as requested by the design panel to their satisfaction. They were very happy with the changes that we made when we went back to them. But we didn't incorporate every single thing that they initially suggested might help.
So if I may then, on the south side of the property, which is the Fitzwilliam Hill side, the exterior, so that's in many respects, that's sort of a feature wall given, and it's fairly massive in scope, size and scope. So I'm wondering, so that side has no landscape, articulation, and it's been removed, or that was one of the requests. And if I may just follow that up with, and I think the exterior cladding was like a metal cladding?
Yes, very similar to the metal cladding that was on the original building. We're seeking to emulate
that ugly building. So now that it's become a feature, new form and character, entering into the old city quarter, which is its heritage and its form and so on, and it's right there on the street, and it's a fairly massive wall, 4 stories and all that stuff. Would that not be considered to be something that we would like to make a little bit more appealing? And I think is that perhaps why the request came from the Design Advisory Panel, to ensure that that side had something different than barn cladding?
And I think we did answer that to the design panel's satisfaction. There is not landscaping per se, because you've got a very narrow space there between where another building someday will likely be, where the parking lot is to the corner. But the retail space, for instance, speaks to that south and east side of the building, so that when you're looking at the building, you're seeing the doorway with beams and brickwork, etc. There's a window that's been added to the south side that looks straight into the retail space. There's architectural color that's been put into the side of the building to break up that long metal piece, etc. There's timbered covering on a doorway that's on the side of the building. So there's a lot more detail been put into that than might be indicated.
Assuming then that it will be aesthetically pleasing coming into the old city quarter to the form and character of the old city quarter.
So, yes.
And then just finally, Your Worship, the neighborhood did not support the proposed variances in the increase of the microbrewery in view of the fact that there would be no parking, and with the concentration of parking issues that are around the area, as we well know, into residential and well into the old city quarter and beyond. Is there a satisfactory responsibility from the operator, whom you're not, to ensure that the impact will be minimized. And the reason I asked that, or make that comment, Your Worship, is because we're losing considerable amount of parking to other projects. That this all by itself, 5 parking spaces, doesn't seem like a lot, but I'm assuming that you're going to be drawing traffic to the property. We hope so. I sure hope you do. Lots of it. And staff, and you get so busy that you need to double your staff, and more than that. So I'm just hopeful that the parking that we already know is compromised in that area will be you'll be very sensitive to mitigating that problem. Because there is the vacant lot beside it that is owned by the same people, correct?
Yes, and it's very likely that the owner, once the construction is done and that lot is available, in the interim between now and whenever that lot gets redeveloped, will be making that lot available for parking. So there will be, at least in the immediate term, an addition to parking.
There's no covenant placed on that to ensure that it will be used for that purpose.
The irony is that many of us will remember that a decade ago, people would love for the fact that there'd be a parking problem because it meant that there were people downtown doing things, whereas before we had plenty of space and no people.
Okay, Councillor Kipp.
Thank you, Your Worship. I missed one point. Shipping and receiving with the traffic incidents and parking. The shipping bay is on what I'll call the northwest or northeast corner of the building?
Correct.
What size of trucks are coming in and out, hauling in the supplies on the incoming logistics and the outgoing?
Those are very typically single-axle cube trucks. They're not like enormous trucks. They're just coming in with bottles and kegs and things like that. So.
Okay. Oh, and the one thing, like I say, the parking downtown, I don't know if it's that there's more people downtown or they're just picking and choosing where they park. Because I think there's a lot of parking spots that are open still. Thank you.
Councillor Holden.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to cover a point that whether it wasn't entirely clear to me about the applicant purchasing the 5 required parking spaces for $3,000 apiece. I think Mr. Tucker was addressing that. Why is the price so low? I mean, a constructed parking space in a parkade, for instance, is a big multiple of that, probably 10 times that. So why is it that to buy off the parking requirement, why are we charging so little for it?
Your Worship, that's probably not a fair question to ask to the applicant. He's just following our rules. These are rules set in our bylaws, and yes, it costs more than that to construct parking. However, a lot of parking in this area is on the level, so it would be the price of land, but it may be that requires review, but that's the applicant's just following our rules. Yes, and if I can add, I believe this is exactly the kind of development we're looking for in the city. They could well choose to go to a lower cost destination like Coombs or Errington. It's fantastic that they're locating in the city. This is exactly what we want for economic development, industry and a business in our own community that's expanding. That's perfect.
Yeah, I completely agree with all those comments about the desirability of the project and the reasonableness of all the variances. I just wondered where that value, if it was staff or us, was it from 20 years ago or something? I mean, the $3,000 just seems minuscule compared to what it's actually worth.
Mr. Tucker?
16 years ago.
Okay, there you go. That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I see no further questions on it, but thank you very much, Ms. Hanson. I think that I wish you well with the project, and I'm really pleased to see that it is downtown.
We receive the delegation.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The next item now is brought forward, and it is Ms. Linda Avis regarding the activities of the Nanaimo Auxiliary to the Nanaimo Regional General Hospital. Welcome, ma'am. You have up to 10 minutes.
Linda Avis, 557 Greenbrier Place, Nanaimo. Thank you for bringing me forward on the agenda. Your Worship, City Councillors, good evening. I stand before you tonight as a proud member of the Nanaimo Auxiliary to Nanaimo Regional General Hospital. My main reason for being here is to raise the awareness of the City Council and inadvertently the citizens of Nanaimo regarding the volunteer efforts of the men and women of our auxiliary. On a dark and dreary January day in the year 1900, a short news item appeared in the Nanaimo Free Press. Quote, "The ladies of Nanaimo are taking steps to organize a ladies' auxiliary, the object being to aid the hospital. A cordial invitation is extended to all ladies of the community to be present." Unquote. The rest, as they say, is history. During the past 111 years, the members of the Nanaimo Hospital Auxiliary have donated countless hours to raise funds for crucial medical equipment and for the purchase of special items for patient comfort. Auxiliary members raise funds through a myriad of activities, such as the operation of a very successful thrift store and hospital gift shop. Volunteers donate many hours to the Nanaimo Harbor City Bingo organization in order for the auxiliary to qualify for a gaming grant. Talented volunteers produce unique handcrafted items for sale at annual bazaars. And of course, there are the ubiquitous bake sales and auxiliary cookbook and 50-50 draws. Last year, the Nanaimo Auxiliary donated $230,000 to the Nanaimo District Hospital Foundation, $8,500 to various NRGH departments to be used exclusively for patient comforts. $55,000 from earned gaming funds were also donated for patient comforts. $4,000 was donated in bursaries to 2 of the auxiliary's junior volunteers who plan to pursue a career in the healthcare field. Thus, last year, the Nanaimo Auxiliary, through 38,701 volunteer hours, donated a total of $297,500 for the benefit of the citizens of this community. Auxiliary members not only raise money for the hospital, but also perform a variety of services within the hospital, such as hosting outpatient clinics, working at the information desk, mentoring the junior volunteers, operating the library cart and the lost and found, providing patient and resident recreation, and volunteer visiting, to mention just a few. At our annual general meeting, a candle lighting ceremony is featured prominently during the installation of new executive officers. There is an old adage which explains the reason for this ceremony. It states, "It is better to light a candle than to complain about the darkness." One candle does not provide a great deal of light, but when many are lit, the light grows and strengthens. The small light ignited that dark and dreary day in 1900 has become a shining beacon, warmly illuminating the hospital environment and bringing compassionate comfort to countless individuals. I am here to advise you that the achievements of our auxiliary and the collective achievements of all the other auxiliaries in the province have not gone unnoticed and are being proudly celebrated next week. The Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia, the Honourable Stephen L. Point, has proclaimed Tuesday, May 10th, 2011 Healthcare Auxiliary Day. I thank you for your time and for listening to my presentation.
Yeah, Seconder? Okay. Thank you very much. I see no questions, but I do want to thank you actually for enlightening us on all the activities that are taking place. I think you're also involved with Parks, Recreation, Culture, and so I just want to say thank you for volunteering for so many projects for Nanaimo. It's greatly appreciated. Wait a minute. Before
question?
We have one question after all. Councillor Patchy.
Since you advised, thank you very much for this. I'm dumbfounded by the volunteerism, not only your auxiliary, but in the city in general terms. In 1900, only the ladies were invited.
That's correct.
When did men start taking part?
I can't give a definitive answer to that because I don't know. But I do know that now we have a small portion of men who are members of the auxiliary, and we're seeking more.
Okay.
Sounds like an opportunity there. Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we're going to go into proclamations. And that the month of May is Missing Children's Month, and the 2011 May 25th is Missing Children's Day in the city of Nanaimo. That 2011 May 01 to 2011 May 07 is Emergency Preparedness Week in the city of Nanaimo. That 2011 May 15 to 2011 May 21st is National Public Works Day. National Public Works Week, rather, in the city of Nanaimo, and that 2011 May 16 to 2011 May 23 is Nanaimo Empire Days Week in the city of Nanaimo. We'll move into committee reports now, and minutes of the Transportation Advisory Committee meeting held 2010 September 23rd, 2010 November 29th, and 2011 January 23rd. Okay, is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. See no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Community Safety and Development, staff reports, DP 706 at 160 Front Street. Staff recommendation that Council issue development permit number DP 706 at 160 Front Street with a 0-meter aquatic setback along the Nanaimo Harbor.
Staff recommendation.
Is there a seconder? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. DP 713 at 295 Selby Street. Staff recommendation that Council issue development permit number DP 713 at 295 Selby Street with the following variances. The condition of use is varied to allow 596.3 square meters or 6,418.27 square feet microbrewery, and 2, the proposed building exceeds 10.5 meters or 35 feet in height within the 6 meter or 9.6 feet setback from the front line of this height mark.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. DVP 169 at 1956 Zorkin Road. Staff recommendation that Council direct staff to proceed with the required statutory notification for development variance permit DVP 169 at 1956 Zorkin Road.
Move the recommendation.
Moved. Seconded. Any discussion? Councillor Patchy.
Question to staff, if I may. On the blue pages, number 72, where there's a picture of this newly proposed sign, and it has the windsock on top of it. It states in the staff report that the windsock is functional. When I look at this picture, it kind of is hidden behind a tree. So, is it as functional as it should be from an aviation point of view, or is it still more an advertising gimmick than something else? I'm confused about that.
Mr. Tucker?
Staff feels that it's a functional windsock.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't know if it is, but it needs to be seen from the water and not from land.
Valid point. Okay, we're moving along to LA.
Question on the motion.
Okay, good idea. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. You're in favor? Just checking. Was it? Okay.
Staff recognized that I voted against it.
Okay. And balanced council in favor. The motion passes. LA 63, entertainment endorsement for a food primary liquor license mixed restaurant at 2220 Bowen Road. Staff recommendation of council recommend the Liquor Control and Licensing Branch LCLB approve the application to allow patron participation entertainment as described in the applicant's cover letter, attachment B of the report, as part of the food primary license for the mixed restaurant.
Move the staff recommendation.
Second. Moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The report on the public hearing held Thursday, 2011, April 14 for bylaws 4000.497, 4000.499, 4000.501, 4000.502, 4000.503, 4000.504, 505, 507, and 508, and the covenant amendment. Staff recommendation of council to receive the report of the minutes of the public hearing held Thursday, 2011, April 14.
Your worship?
Yeah. Okay.
I have a point.
Yes, yeah, it was moved, and was there a seconder on that?
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Kipp.
I'd like to move an amendment, page 102, the second speaker down. I believe there's been an error in the opposition to this. When I look at and remember my notes, I believe that this should be corrected to be in favor. And so I would make that as an amendment to the...
Second amendment.
Okay, I see no further discussion on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then on the main motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Kipp. Councillor Kipp, that was kind of a glaring error that we kind of glazed over, and I apologize for that. RA 272, Covenant Agreement, 6700 Island Highway North. Staff recommendation of council provide direction regarding the proposed covenant amendment, which was forwarded to the public hearing held 2011, April 14. If somebody would like to move that. Move second recommendation. Is there a seconder?
We have to
Okay, sorry. I was skipping ahead too fast here. So would somebody like to make a recommendation?
Yes. Your worship, I would make a motion that we remove the prohibitive covenant. Second. On this property.
Okay. 700 Island. Okay. Moved and seconded. Now, Councillor Kipp, did you want to speak to this one?
No, that was all.
Councillor Bestwick, did you want to speak to this one? No. No. Councillor Sherry.
Made that motion, Your worship.
Mr. Chairman, I will not be supporting the motion for us to remove. When this matter came before the council originally, there was reasons why of the day, and they were all in agreement as it related to those covenants being placed on there by the applicant of the day. And I don't feel that much has changed since then. And, there was the comment made that because of the nature of the building and the nature of the zoning as it related to the category that this operation was placed in, it was in an industrial, not into a commercial. Well, people jumped to the deal that, industrial pays a higher rate than the commercial. That's true. But then when you get a big box store like this, which was metal clad and whatever, it did not have the finish of a commercial building, so therefore the assessed value of the building was nowhere near the establishment as it related to across the road from this. So if you want to use taxation, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't hold water. And I believe that one of the individuals indicated that, as especially it related to the hearing aids, this organization wasn't willing to share information as it relates to the brand of hearing aids that they were promoting and selling. So therefore, the sharing of information was not there. So on those basis, Mr. Chairman, I feel that the status quo should remain.
Okay, sir. Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be voting in favor of removing the covenant this evening, Your Worship. Costco is consistent with the Woodgrove urban node policies, and other stores in the area, retail stores, Sears, Superstore, and Walmart, all have these facilities. It's for members only, and currently members are driving a long way to Langford to get these services. I believe that Costco have been and are good corporate citizens, contributing greatly to the tax base. They have one of the largest employee groups in the city of Nanaimo, and they contribute to charities excessively. So I'll be speaking in favor this evening of this removal of the covenant, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. I see no further questions. I too will be supporting it, and I think the reality is that it's my understanding that Costco will be opening very shortly an extremely large store in Courtenay, something in the neighborhood of 1.5 times that of Nanaimo. And I think that if we don't make the move to provide services to those members of Costco that want it, they'll simply go elsewhere, and the sales will be lost in our community. So I will be supporting it. There's a motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of removing the covenant? And opposed? Councillor Sherry opposed. Balanced councillors in favor. The covenant will be removed. You agree with that, Ms. Harrison? You're giving me the nod. Okay. Property Maintenance Bylaw 1990, number 3704. It's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to property maintenance at the properties listed below. Staff recommendation that council, pursuant to Property Maintenance Bylaw 1990, number 3704, direct owners of the following properties to remove the material as listed below from the premises within 14 days, or the work will be done by the city or its agents at the owner's cost. The first property is 2127 Northfield Road, derelict vehicles, discarded metal, wood, plastic, tires, household garbage, and miscellaneous debris. Is there anyone present that would like to speak to matters regarding 2127 Northfield Road? The second property is 1009 Bruce Avenue, derelict blue Plymouth Chevrolet. Plymouth Chevrolet, say that again. I didn't do very well with that, and I'll have another go at it. It's a derelict blue Plymouth sedan. Household garbage, household items, papers, and miscellaneous debris. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters regarding 1009 Bruce Avenue and a derelict blue Plymouth? Sorry? That's underneath all that material, I think. There it is. Okay. Okay, so there's no one in attendance here from 1009 Bruce Avenue. We'll move on to the next property, and that's 755 Albert Street. Garbage, a derelict RV, and miscellaneous debris. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters related to 755 Albert Street? The next one, number 4, has been pulled. Number 5 is 354 Watfield Avenue. Several unlicensed and derelict vehicles, blackberry bushes encroaching on the neighbor's property, and miscellaneous debris. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak to matters related to 354 and 356 Watfield Avenue? Yes. Come down, sir, and we just need your name and address and your affiliation to the property.
Representing both properties.
We need your name, sir.
Mike Sunga.
Okay.
That property there is my property is 354, and the neighboring property is 356. That's my mom's property. And here it states that there are several unlicensed and derelict vehicles, but there's only 2 unlicensed vehicles on the property at 354. There's no blackberry bushes. I received this generic letter from the bylaw officer, which I'll pass along to you, Chair Council. That letter is a reflection of both. He met with my sister, and he said that that blackberry bushes were, as you see, there's no blackberry bushes encroaching on anybody else's property there. That's 354, which in this thing it says there are blackberry bushes encroaching. The next property, my mom's property, there was blackberry bushes encroaching on the neighboring, which my sister cut back. And there was one issue with a bed on the side of the house, which my sister took care of. So I don't know what his issue was further stated by him. I made a call to the officer, and he did not specify what the complaint was or what the issue was at the time. So I went and told him that to view the property again and to state what needed to be done, and he never did. So.
Well, it looks to me like there is some debris on some of the slides that we passed through. Does this not look like, could we go back up and like this? Does that not look like some debris to you, or is that?
No, it's actually like I've got 2x4s under my trailer. Yes, it's a little bit, it needs to be cleaned up. Like it's issue there again is 2x4s being stored so it doesn't rot and decay. So I can clean it up. Like, yeah, it might be an issue there. So I'm just asking council what council wants done. Like,
well, I think
that vehicle there has been removed.
When was the vehicle removed?
It's no longer there.
No, but when was it moved?
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Well, we're concerned about unsightly premises, and it would appear to me, just looking at these pictures in an unbiased fashion, to be somewhat unsightly. You don't agree?
Thing is, it is unsightly, but I have to cover up my vehicles. The vehicles have to be covered up. So there's no other way of covering up. If I put canopies in, they're still going to be unsightly, and there's going to be a bylaw issue. So at this time, I just covered them up with tarps.
Well, I read out the staff recommendation that we're to direct the owners of the following properties to remove the materials as listed below from the premises within 14 days, or the work will be done by the city or its agents at the owner's cost. Now, if you say the blackberry bushes have been moved, we'll respect your word on that. Mm-hmm. If you say that vehicle's been removed, we'll also respect that. But there's still other debris on there, and so you have 14 days to clean up the other material in that. Is that going to be a condition you can meet?
Sorry?
Is that a condition you can meet to remove the other things?
Not in 2 weeks, because I'm attending my mom. My mom has been in the hospital for 3 months now, and I've been attending her side, and she is in very critical condition, so I'm not able to meet the city's 2-week criteria.
Okay, we'll come back to that, but we've got some questions for you. Councillor Patchy.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. To staff, if I may. On page 211, it says that this is the third property maintenance complaint, that the previous two were voluntarily cleaned up. Were they of a similar nature, or were they different from what we see now?
Different.
I'm asking staff.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, Councillor Patchy, I believe they were similar.
And then if I may ask you a question, Mr. Songa, you cleaned it up twice before when we asked you to. Why does it become a problem now?
Just because of weathering, winter weather, right? It decays everything, right? So without proper shelter, this is what happens, right? So it's a yearly maintenance. It's just like a house, right? Every house has to be kept up yearly, otherwise it'll decay. And my yard, yes, it needs maintenance right now.
It certainly does. Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Unger.
To Mr. Songa, why do you have all this material in your yard?
I'm in construction, and I'm metal fab, and I use a lot of the material.
The cars, are they drivable?
Yes.
Because they're not licensed. Why are they sitting there?
They're being stored. I can license them if that's an issue.
No, but private yards are not storage areas.
I'm allowed 4 vehicles in the yard according to bylaw and 2 unlicensed, and which that's the case.
And that trailer, I mean, that is a mess.
Yeah, it needs a wash, but it's not a mess. It looks worse in the picture than it is. It needs to be washed.
Okay, sir. Well, I think we're just going to... Councillor Pecci, do you have something else? You're back on here again. Is it? No, it's fine. Councillor, you're finished?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So, thank you, sir. I see no further questions for you. Thank you. And that, so in actually what we dealt with now is 354 Watfield and the remaining item on the list, which is 356 Watfield Avenue. So, if somebody would like to...
I move the staff recommendation as it relates to those 5 items on the list.
Okay. Is there a seconder? Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir. We're going into structural removal order, 337 View Street, unauthorized suite in a single-family dwelling. It's requested that councillor herein wishing to speak with respect to the illegal secondary suite at 337 View Street. Staff recommendation that council, pursuant to section 72 and 73 of the community charter, order the owners of 337 View Street to remove the illegal suite or bring it up to standard within 30 days. Is there anyone in attendance that would not like to speak to matters related to 337 View Street?
Yes, I would, sir.
Come down, please, ma'am. We just need your name and address for the file, please.
My name is Linda Onwood of 12631 South Dual Road, Ladysmith. Thank you, Your Worship, and members of the council for allowing me to speak.
Okay, we need to know your affiliation to the property.
My affiliation, my husband and I are co-owners of 337 View Street. May I give a brief history? We purchased this property 19 years ago, March 1992, as a revenue property. It's the only one we have. We're not large property owners. We purchased it with the secondary suite already there, and for the past 19 years we've provided housing for a number of low-income residents of Nanaimo. Later that year, a disgruntled tenant who was disgruntled because we had to take him to arbitration, they abandoned the suite and left it in a terrible mess, vandalized it. So they complained to the city that the secondary suite existed, and as a result of that, it was inspected on October 28, 92. We were informed at that time by the inspector that the building met with safety standards and that they would take note of the fact that this secondary suite existed, although it was non-conforming. Later in 99, we started to receive user fee statements for 2 units for water, sewer, and garbage, which we were happy to pay. Then this brings us to present day. About November of 2010, there was a further request from the city to have the suite inspected, and this resulted from a complaint. We were not really surprised. A tenant in the basement suite was evicted because of refusal to pay rent. We had to take him also to arbitration, and when he left, he vandalized the house. We later learned that this person was an ex-convict and has since been convicted again for making death threats to my other tenants. So now we are being required to either draw up plans and obtain a building permit and perform expensive upgrades, or to remove the suite entirely. And my husband and I believe that this is not only unfair but also discriminatory, as there are thousands of non-conforming suites in the city, and for the most part these are left alone. We were told this by the building inspector, that that is the City Council's policy, and that they only respond to complaints. So it seems to us that the city maintains a policy of tolerance for most owners of secondary suites, but intolerance in our case. So
well,
I would like
I think
to
just
ask...
let me clarify the point here that we don't discriminate in that manner. We have to be complaint driven. There's no way we could afford to have people going into everyone's house on a regular basis. So when a complaint is given to us that there is something that's not consistent with our policies, they come out and examine at that point, and I don't think it's discriminatory.
However, as I mentioned, the city is fully aware of many others, as we have been billed since 1999 for 2 units, so are many other
Have you discussed this with staff previously?
Pardon me?
Have you discussed this matter with staff previously?
We discussed this with the building inspector who came to inspect the house.
And you weren't able to come to any resolution at that point?
My husband was stated that he did not think this was fair, and he was not happy about what he was being requested to do. So really what I wanted to ask is, do you feel it's right for the city to come between 2 parties, someone who has an axe to grind and his landlord, and act as a punitive club, and doing the bidding of an ex-convict? And also, does the City Council feel comfortable with me having to evict if I was forced to remove the suite, which is probably what I would have to do because the other option would be far too expensive for our income? We would have to evict a single mother on disability pension and her 4-year-old daughter, Savannah. So it is our belief that fair treatment would require you to either expect all suites to conform or none. And that's
okay. Well, it's my understanding that we do inspect all the suites that are reported to us that are non-conforming.
However, you are aware of more than the ones that you receive complaints about.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to argue the point with you. Councillor Oldham.
Thank you.
Yes, Your Worship. Do we? Is it called Section 57? Do we have a filing on this property already?
Yes, I believe we do.
So, any idea when that was placed on it?
No, I don't have that information in front of me.
Okay, and there are safety issues involved here?
Yes, there are.
Can you detail those?
Generally, there's 3 issues. It's detection, fire spread, and exits. I don't know which 3 apply directly in this case, but as the council policy is once we inspect a suite, if there's those safety issues, they have to be rectified, as in this case, or the suite has to be removed. In most cases, people are able to deal with those 3 safety issues and bring the building into compliance.
Is there still that level of compliance that would receive Section 57 declaration that the building contains a non-authorized suite, but we would not enforce against it?
Yes, and that's the case in this circumstance.
Okay, so we're not requiring this owner then to bring this up to full current secondary suite standards, only to make it safe. Is that correct?
That's correct. They have the option to bring it up to fully, but that's quite onerous.
Okay. So I guess I need to ask you why you believe that is too expensive.
To hire an architect to draw up plans and then apply for a building permit. This is what we were ordered to do.
This has nothing to do with architects. This has to do with bringing it up to a certain
This is what the letter we received from the city said.
Did you have to hire an architect?
Yes, it did. It's on page 2 of the letter dated February 24th, 2011. It says, review of the original building permit number 011830, and in parentheses BP 011830, for this property indicates that a single-family dwelling was constructed over an unfinished basement with a carport. Pardon me, it was a previous paragraph. In order to retain a secondary suite, a building permit is required. In order to submit a building permit application, acceptable drawings need to be provided that are in compliance with the secondary suite policy and section 9.36 of the BC Building Code. The scale drawings, 1/4 inch to 1 foot scale, are to show all room uses, locations of smoke detectors, locations of fire separations between floors and demising walls, sample provided. As the requirements may be complex to understand, it is advisable that a designer that is familiar with Section 9.36 of the Building Code and the secondary suite policy be involved in supplying the drawings.
A designer. Okay, so it's not an architect.
Pardon me.
But
That's not my field of expertise.
That's an interesting paragraph, however, whether it says designer or architect. And I guess I need to go back to staff and say, why are we requiring that level of detail when all we are trying to address are safety issues, such as exits and smoke detectors and so on?
Yes, all we need is a record of the floor plans to determine where the fire separations or exits would be placed. It is quite a simple process, as you describe. Most contractors or people who do drafting could draft up this requirement, and then we have a record of it being designed properly and thereafter installed correctly.
And so it's not a high-cost issue?
No, and we can assist the applicant. We, in general cases, have the floor plans of the building when it was built, and therefore they can take those floor plans away and have someone modify them to reflect those 3 upgrades that I previously noted.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Seward, primarily what we're doing is to try to protect the taxpayers in the case of litigation for negligence?
Yes, and the other very important point is the safety aspects, because if there was a fire and there's inadequate exit or a smoke detection, as for instance, that those are crucial issues that need to be dealt with right now.
Thank you.
May I comment further, Your Worship?
Well, you know what would have been a great time is for you to have sat down with staff and gone through all these things tonight, because really at this 11th hour, it's a little late to do something. Was it not? Did you not mention that on October 28th, 1992, you were advised that the suite was illegal? That was 20 years ago.
We were told that the building met safety requirements and they were not requiring us to do anything at that time.
That was 20 years ago. Okay. Councillor Holdham, have you got something to add? Go ahead. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. In 1992, I'm sure that the criteria for the suite was different than it is today, and at no fault of the delegation. And I'm intrigued by the 1999 application of charges for a suite, which, as the delegation has indicated, would clearly suggest to us that we are full well knowing of it, and I would assume then approving of it if we're charging for its purpose of intended use. So my question then is, and this is a comment to a colleague, that it's not an expensive process, and to me those things are relative. Not expensive relative to what and for who and from beginning to end. So maybe a draftsperson's sketches that would meet the test of the engineering department may by themselves not be costly. I don't know, but I think that's relative. So I wouldn't want to place any burden given we don't know what that is. And would we not just be putting an unauthorized covenant on for the tenants, and for future sale or use of this property?
We have a notice on title already. That's my understanding of this file. But this issue is that the owner will not provide the safety upgrades required by the building code, and that's why this is before you tonight.
And the specific safety upgrades that you're referring to.
Yes.
May I comment on this?
Have been just a moment.
Not at this point, please.
I'm sorry.
Have been well expressed and documented to the applicant.
Yes, that's the practice we follow, either verbally or both verbally at the inspection and in a follow-up letter.
So the letter is really where the rubber hits the road then?
Yes.
So, thank you.
Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. To staff, if I may, our secondary suite bylaw came into effect when?
Secondary suites were allowed in February of 2005.
Okay, so these issues of 1992 and 1999, we did not have anything on the books.
Secondary suites were not allowed by zoning, as the delegation says. There were thousands in place at that time.
Okay. Could you inform us as to what if we allowed this lady to not do what we think she should be doing, what kind of precedent do we set, and what kind of liability do we leave ourselves open to?
Well, certainly the concern is the safety of both tenants in both suites here, that a fire could spread between the suites very quickly if adequate fire separations are not in place. There may not be adequate exits in place that the people can get out safely, and therefore certainly there's a large concern both for the property owner and for the city about liability of leaving this in place without the safety upgrades completed. And from a precedent point of view, this is the policy that council has followed consistently. If there's safety deficiencies, they're required to be corrected, or this removal upgrade order is placed.
Thank you.
Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Ms. Onwood, surely you wouldn't want to see your tenant and a 4-year-old child in any type of safety or jeopardy?
In no way, and we do not believe there is any safety issue here.
Okay. But I think, our staff is very accommodating and easy to sit down and talk to, and I think perhaps just to sit down and have a chat with them tomorrow or the next day, make an appointment, and it may be you're assuming that the cost is going to be much greater than it actually is. It may be as simple as fire, hydrants or fire extinguishers and a few other things. So
perhaps
fire detectors.
What they were saying is not really what they meant. I'm not sure. I do know that some of the listed things they said were wrong with the suite are not actually wrong with the suite. So I'm not sure why it was said that way.
If I were you, I'd just make an appointment. I think you'll find it's going to be quite simple.
Thank you for your suggestion.
Councillor Kip.
Through the staff, Your Worship, the three things that staff really worries about are interconnected fire alarms or fire separation, means of egress and access to the apartment, and a separate heating system. Am I correct? That's normally three of the things that are very concerning.
Yes, detection's the first one. Fire spread, which includes the interconnected heating systems, and exits. Those are the three.
Those are the three things. The delegation says that they meet those. Do you have interconnected smoke alarms in your building?
We have independent smoke alarms from the downstairs and the upstairs, as any other single-family dwelling of that size has.
Interconnected usually means that there's a fire in Suite A, Suite B knows about it, and that's a concern with not having interconnected. What about egress? Numbers of way out of all the bedrooms, windows big enough to get out of?
Everything is conforming, even though it's suggesting that it isn't in the letter we received on February 24th.
Those issues are extremely important to me. I mean, just recently, Friday, we had a death in Nanaimo, I believe, from a secondary suite that might not have been sufficient or how it was laid out, and that I'm concerned. And although you've been doing it for a lot of time, I do think staff is somewhat under the push to do these once they're complaint, but I think if we could somehow get you to talk to staff and find out some quotes on it and find out, because if you've been collecting rent for a long time, maybe it's time to upgrade and spend the money. And I know it's tough, and we need this type of housing. Absolutely need this type of housing in Nanaimo. It's absolutely affordable. It makes people be able to stay in their homes longer, and I think it's important, but the safety issues are absolutely important.
I would agree. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a staff recommendation.
Receipt of the delegation.
Okay, second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Move the staff recommendation.
Seconder? Is there a seconder for that? Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We'll move into structural removal order. Sorry, the
unresolved building
deficiencies notice on title section 5.7. It's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to unresolved building deficiencies or illegal suites for the properties listed below. Staff recommendation that council by resolution instruct the manager of legislative services to file a bylaw contravention notice respecting the properties listed below at the Land Title and Survey Authority of British Columbia under section 5.7 of the Community Charter. 3 properties are listed: 51 Halliburton Street, illegal construction construction finished basement to include 2 secondary suites. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters related to 51 Halliburton Street? Second property is 529 Poplar Street, illegal construction, finished basement to include a secondary suite. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters related to 529 Poplar Street? And the third one is 138 Wildlife Place, illegal construction, finished basement to include a secondary suite. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters related to 138 Wildlife Place? Seeing nothing? Okay, is there a seconder? Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moved into fire protection and life safety bylaw. Staff's recommendation that council receive the report pertaining to fire protection and life safety bylaw 2011 number 7108, which is presented under the bylaw section of the agenda. Councillor Holden.
Your Worship, I'll move receipt and then ask a question after that's passed.
Okay. Is there a seconder? All those in favor? Opposed? Go ahead.
Your Worship, on the advice of staff, I would move that we consider this bylaw with the amendments as proposed by staff should the council wish to continue to allow cooking fires in the city. So that's on the top of page 220 or page 3 of the specific report. And it removes from the bylaw the definition of cooking fire, and it changes part 7 to part 8 and inserts the new number 7, which deals with the permit requirements. I guess I'm asking through you to staff I'm moving that we amend the bylaw as suggested by staff on that page.
Moved and seconded. Does staff have a comment to make, Council?
Just to clarify that, yes, staff are saying that if you want to allow cooking fires, that would be the way to do it. We're not recommending that. We're recommending that you adopt the bylaw as we presented. However, if you want to allow cooking fires, that is the suggested way. We're not recommending that.
The recommendation from staff basically is that if we do proceed with that, we have to be specific as to a barbecue or grill designed for cooking and containing the fire, and where the fire may be only utilize propane, natural gas, or briquettes.
Yes. Your recommendation? Your Worship, I understand staff is advising something that would make it a bit clearer, perhaps, about what kinds of fires are permitted, and in fact none. But I do think we should allow for some room for ceremonial, cultural, and special kinds of little fires that are well contained. The ones I've seen are certainly small, and there would be no confusion if a firefighter was called to that scene to determine whether that was a cooking fire or a garbage fire. I completely sympathize and agree with the firefighters who get there and somebody quickly sticks a wiener on the end of a stick and says, "Oh, this is a cooking fire." I mean, I think people do take advantage of the bylaw, but I don't think it's one of those cases where I don't think we should throw out the baby with the bathwater, as they say. We should still allow these things and still enforce it as well as we can. And I think our firefighters are professional enough to be able to tell the difference.
Councillor Kip.
Bishop, I support the motion on the cooking fires for people. I'm disappointed that we didn't insist that staff be built into this for evacuation and the event sign language, but I support this one because I've had actually quite a few calls and some emails from people. But I also understand that people have to be prepared. When the fire department arrives on scene and they know that's not a cooking fire, that you're in trouble, and then they're going to write tickets, because it is not only the fact that it's a danger of the fire, but it's the air quality issue I think that staff's really pushing for. And I support the effect of air quality, but I like the fact that we have that primal need for fire. And I just wish with the language stuff that eventually the Office of the Fire Commissioner will catch up to the rest of the world with language and comments and things, because I think they're way behind. Thank you.
Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. To staff, if I may, what is exactly meant if we change part 7 to 8 when it says provided the fire is contained to a device or fixture to design for containing the fire. How limiting is that? Or could you give me a bit of an example as to what we would be looking at?
Your Worship, that would typically that would get into manufactured devices for the most part. It also, for example, a burning barrel where cooking could occur, like a barrel cut off. As long as the fire is contained, for the most part, it would fit that definition.
Thank you.
Councillor Bestwick.
I'll refrain from this.
Okay. Is there further staff comment? It says on here, maybe not. Okay. There's a motion now on the floor, and
Is that an amendment to the report, or?
Yeah, are we going to deal with that? What are you showing now, Ms. Harrison? Just for clarification.
At this time, it would be, there's a motion to amend the draft bylaw, which makes the changes on page 220 to remove the definition of cooking fire and add in a new section 7, 30 sub 7.
Okay. So on the amendment, all those in favor? Opposed? So we have Councillor Greaves opposed, balance of council in favor. The motion passes. And on the main motion then, oh no, sorry, it's been changed. Sorry about that. Okay. So let's move on to corporate services and bylaw to amend Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Bylaw 2006 number 7024. Staff recommendation that council receive the report pertaining to Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Amendment Bylaw 2011 number 7024.01, which is presented under the bylaw section of the agenda.
Who received the information?
Move the seat. Seconder. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Move into Parks and Trails Parcel Tax Bylaw. Staff recommendation that council receive the report pertaining to the Parcel Tax Rule Preparation Bylaw 2011 number 7123 and Regional Parks and Trails Parcel Tax Bylaw 2011 number 7124, which are presented under the bylaw section of the agenda. Seconded. Those all in favor? Carried. Going into the approval of tender number 1142, the Nanaimo Aquatic Center, Phase 1.
Excuse me, Your Worship.
Just above it. Oh, sorry, I missed that one. Apologize for that. Okay. Financial plan and tax rate bylaws. I should have marked as I went by. Staff recommendation the council receive the report pertaining to the financial plan amendment bylaw 2011 number 7121.01 and the tax rate bylaws 2011 number 7125, which are presented under the bylaw section of the agenda.
Move to receive the report.
Moved and second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now we move into the approval of tender 1142 Nanaimo Aquatic Center Phase 1 Energy Upgrades 741 3rd Street. Staff recommendation that council direct staff to proceed with issuing a purchase order for tender 1142 Nanaimo Aquatic Center Phase 1 Energy Upgrades to Summit Mechanical Limited for the low bid of $250,599.83 plus HST for a tender price of $280,671.81. Moved. Is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Who receipt of the information only items?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Any discussion of either 12A or 12B? Hearing none, we'll move into the reconsideration of bylaws, and it'll be moved by Acting Mayor Councillor Johnstone. Councillor Johnstone?
Yes, Your Worship. That zoning amendment bylaw 2010 number 4000.491 RA 242 to rezone 440 Wakeside Avenue from single-family residential zone RS1 to residential corridor zone RM12 in order to allow for a student housing development be adopted.
Moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That zoning amendment bylaw 2011 number 4000.497 RA 261 to rezone 6001 Pines Ridge Crest present from RS1 to RM1 in order to facilitate subdivision of the land to accommodate 2 duplex lots, pass third reading.
Second. Moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That zoning amendment bylaw 2011 number 4000.499 RA 262 to rezone part of 2469 Labio Road and 2368 Barclay Road from RS1 and RM3 to RM3 in order to facilitate the construction of a multifamily dwellings, pass third reading.
Second. Moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sherry opposed. Balance of council in favor. The motion passes.
That zoning amendment bylaw 2011 number 4501 RA 256 to rezone 6470 Metro Drive from rural agricultural residential zone A2 to regional shopping town center commercial zone C21 in order to facilitate construction of a commercial development, pass third reading.
Okay, I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That zoning amendment bylaw 2011 number 4000.502 RA 268 to rezone part of 5494 Godfrey Road from single-family residential zone RS1 to single-family residential small lot zone RS6 in order to facilitate subdivision of the lot, pass third reading.
Second motion. Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. I shall not be supporting this one for the following reason. I really am in favor of infill and densification as much as we can, and it also should go for the old city quarter. I'm convinced that it shall not always stay the same as it is now. I do have a problem with this one in that, a considerable number of residents of that area have expressed a concern, and I think that concern is mostly because they don't know at this point what is intended there to be on those two lots. The other thing that I have a problem with is on page 93, where it says the existing home would remain on the property.
You're on the wrong.
No, I think
the wrong one.
Yeah. This is Godfrey.
I think you might be referring to Wentworth, unless I'm
Godfrey, I thought we
mistaken.
voted on. Well, let me start it all over again in a minute then.
We'll remember. Okay.
I thought we were there. Okay, sorry.
Not yet.
Okay.
Thank goodness, I feel vindicated already. So let's vote on Godfrey Road. Do you have any concerns about Godfrey Road?
No, whatsoever.
Okay. Happily then, we'll ask, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Now.
Okay, now it's your turn.
No, yet. Go ahead.
That zoning amendment bylaw 2011 number 4503 RA 274 to rezone 952 Wentworth Street from single-family residential zone RS1 to single-family residential small lot zone RS6 in order to facilitate subdivision of the lot, pass third reading.
Councillor Patchy.
Okay, I'm not going to have to repeat everything I said already. I think you've heard that. I do have a problem with that portion of the staff report on 93 where it says that if the existing home would remain on the property. However, if the home were moved or demolished, plans are in place to widen the lane. It's all too vague for me, and so I shall not be supporting them.
Okay, Councillor Sherry.
Mr. Chairman, the number of people that attended the petition that was also presented, not in favor of this, and my biggest concern is why were they access to this lot off of the alleyway? Why not, if it's such a good deal, why isn't it coming off Wentworth? To start off with, so I can't support what's being requested here.
Okay, Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think this needs some more information. Does a question through you to staff? Does the infill fit this neighborhood? Infill fit this particular neighborhood because of its heritage aspect?
Staff's of the opinion that you can do infill in a sensitive manner in this neighborhood.
And have the parking issues been addressed?
The proposed development would provide adequate parking on site, but access to the parking would be by access across the rear of the property that has the existing house on it.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Kipp.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I have a couple of concerns. One, on this type of infill in this area is form and character. And I don't think at this stage we can involve form and character, so the process itself to me is flawed, where we're going into an area, we don't have design guidelines, say like the downtown design guidelines or such, because we could put some really ugly little boxes in there where they bring down the tone or the form and character of the neighborhood. Plus the alley in this situation with the access to the traffic for the alley is a bit of a concern for me. I know we've got a letter on a person not far away where we demanded that they expand the alley on a similar kind of, a rezoning application. So I find it tough. Plus, I also think that the neighborhood is quite concerned about this one, but that's not always a big thing to me. But I'm worried about form and character going in because it is a very beautiful area, and I'm worried about the alleyway on this and the sensitivity to design. So I can't support it as it stands currently. Thank you.
Councillor Holden.
Yes, Your Worship, just a couple of questions to staff. Is the existing older house encroaching on the lane to some degree, or encroaching on what would be the lane if it was normal width?
If the lane were widened, it would be encroaching. The need to widen the lane is what would trigger the encroachment. So it would. That's why the reference to it may be encroaching into the laneway. It's for the widening.
Yeah. I wish there were more of a design element at this stage, because I really can't support something that's, I know, conforms to the density issues in the OCP and so on, but this kind of area anyway, several areas like this in town, we need to do more sensitively, and if we can't see or have some image at least to hold the developer to, it's really a pig in a poke, and I can't support it.
Okay. I see no further questions, and I have to say that I share the same view. I really would like to have an artist's conception of what will be built there, and without it, I mean, it's kind of a shot in the dark. I won't be able to support it either. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? So you're in favor? Yes. Sorry? So the balance of council is opposed, so the motion is defeated.
Your Worship, that zoning amendment bylaw 2011 number 4000.504, barring 277 to rezone 368 Hillcrest Avenue from single-family residential zone RS-1A to residential duplex zone RM1 in order to facilitate construction of 2 duplex lots. Pass third reading. Second.
Moved and seconded. Councillor Pecci, did you have something on this?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I have thought long and hard about this one. I've driven out twice. I know this is the second time that we're getting it, and it's down from, it was 6 units to 4. I know that there are some neighbors opposed to it, but I still come back then to the point that if it were 2 single-family residences with a secondary suite in each, the density would be the same and the results would be the same. So I shall be supporting this rezoning with reservation.
Okay, I see no further questions. All those in... Sorry, are you on there? Oh, no. Councillor Buswick. Now, Councillor Sherry. Councillor Beswick, are you on there too?
Mm-hmm. I'll go after Councillor Sherry.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, yes, this is the second go-around with this development from 6 to 4. The neighborhood has come out at both hearings as it relates. The last one we had is a petition again with 27 people against it. I think what the problem is with duplexes, the massing of the structure, where if it was 2 single-family dwellings with secondary suites, they still get the 4, but you don't get the massing of the structure. structure that would be needed for try to fit into the neighborhood. So basically, it's the neighborhood would accept the single family with a secondary suite, but they're not prepared for duplexes, and on their behalf I'll vote according to the neighborhood.
Okay, Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. This has been one of the properties that's been extremely sensitive as well, and I think in that entire university district, if you will, in the 3rd Street corridor, moving over to the Hawthorne Heights, and I think we did such a great job with secondary suites and coach house applications, and they are attractive. They serve the density criteria and the intent without, I'm just going to say, overkill, for the lack of a better term. And this is a really difficult one for me, and the neighborhood has spoken up consistently about its neighborhood and about its street and about other developments that are going on around it within a block or two. And so this one has really caused me some concern. I know that the developer does great work, and I know that the applicant does great work. This again comes down to the people that are most dearly affected by this type of massing of density, and I'm not going to be able to support this. I would love to see the home with a suite and or a coach house or whatever it would be able to have, much like we've done at Hawthorne, and that has been extremely popular and widely recognized as being leading edge, if you will. And so for those reasons, I won't be able to support this, Your Worship.
Okay, I see no further questions. On the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 opposed. Balance of council. Did you get the names on those, Ms. Harrison?
I have Councillor Sherry, Bestwick, Rattan, Kipp, and Greaves. Opposed.
Opposed. And the balance council was in favor, so the motion is defeated.
That's good.
And at that point, there's no point in continuing on with 2 then, obviously, so we'll go on to H1.
That zoning amendment bylaw 2011 number 4000.505 RA 269 to rezone 5650 Hammond Bay Road from single-family residential zone RS1 to residential triplex and quadruplex zone RM2 in order to facilitate construction of a 4-unit multifamily dwelling past 3rd reading.
Is there a second? Second. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That zoning amendment bylaw 2011 number 4000.505 be adopted.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
That zoning amendment bylaw 2011 number 4000.507 RA 276 to rezone part of 6414 Portsmouth Road from single-family residential zone RS1 to residential triplex and quadruplex zone RM2 in order to facilitate subdivision of the lot and construction of a triplex past 3rd reading.
Second motion.
Moved and seconded. Councillor Sherry.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if we're going to listen to the neighborhood, there's another one that it was the second turnaround from a multi-family down to 1 or 2 units reduced to get it down once again. And I think it's on behalf of the neighborhood there, this is, for lack of a better word, an overkill for the additional units that's being requested.
Okay, I see no further questions. I'm going to have some difficulty supporting this myself. So on the motion, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3 in favor. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do you have the count, Ms. Harrison?
In this case, I have those in favor as being Councillors Patchy, Johnston, and Unger.
Yes. Balanced Councillor opposed, and the motion fails. Go ahead.
That zoning amendment bylaw 2011 number 4508 RA 273 3440 Shenton Road to add a site-specific text amendment to the light industrial zone 1-2 to permit the use of automotive sales and rentals past third reading.
Second.
Okay, I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That housing agreement bylaw 2011 number 7122 for student housing development at 440 Wakeside Avenue be adopted.
Moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Introduction to bylaws.
That Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Amendment Bylaw 2011 number 7024.01 to designate the position of Steno Legislative Services Claims FOI as the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Coordinator for the municipality pass first reading.
Second. Moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Amendment Bylaw 2011 number 7024.01 pass second reading.
Second. Moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed?
That Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Amendment Bylaw 2011 number 7024.01 pass third reading.
Moved and seconded. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That Fire Protection and Life Safety Regulation Bylaw 2011 number 7108 to regulate fire protection and life safety and provide emergency services pass first reading. That's what they amended?
As
amended?
Yeah. Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Oh, sorry. Councillor Greaves opposed. Balanced Council in favor. The motion passes.
That Fire Protection and Life Safety Regulation Bylaw 2011 number 7108 pass second reading as amended.
Second. As amended. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Greaves opposed. Balanced Council in favor. The motion passes.
That Fire Protection and Life Safety Regulation Bylaw 2011 number 7108 pass third reading as amended.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Greaves opposed. Balanced Council in favor. The motion passes.
That Parcel Tax Roll Preparation Bylaw 2011 number 7123 to provide for the preparation of a parcel tax roll pass first reading.
Is there a seconder? Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
That Parcel Tax Roll Preparation Bylaw 2011 number 7123 pass second reading.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed?
That Parcel Tax Roll Preparation Bylaw 2011 number 7123 pass third reading.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That Regional Parks and Trails Parcel Tax Bylaw 2011 number 7124 to impose on Regional Park and Trails Parcel Tax pass first reading.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That Regional Parks and Trails Parcel Tax Bylaw 2011 number 7124 pass second reading.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That Regional Parks and Trails Parcel Bylaw 2011 number 7124 pass third reading.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
That Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw 2011 number 7121.01 to amend the 2011-2015 Financial Plan pass first reading.
Second. Moved and seconded. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sherry and Councillor Beswick opposed. Balance of Council in favor. The motion passes.
That Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw 2011 number 7121.01 pass second reading.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Beswick, Councillor Sherry opposed. Balance of Council in favor. The motion passes.
That Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw 2011 number 7121.01 pass third reading.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sherry, Councillor Beswick opposed. Balance of Council in favor. The motion passes.
That Tax Rates Bylaw 2011 number 7125 to fix the tax rates on real property in the City of Nanaimo and to provide for the payment of taxes for the 2011 year pass first reading.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sherry, Councillor Beswick opposed. Balance of Council in favor. The motion passes.
That Tax Rates Bylaw 2011 number 7125 pass second reading.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sherry, Councillor Beswick opposed. Balance of Council in favor.
That Tax Rates Bylaw 2011 number 7125 pass third reading.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Beswick, Councillor Sherry opposed. Balance of Council in favor. The motion passes. Thank you very much.
Receipt of the correspondence.
Second. Okay. All those in favor?
Your Worship?
Yes.
Are we going to apply for this award? Have we written a letter?
No, Your Worship, we have not. You're talking about the competing as the most small business friendly? Is that the one you're talking about?
Then do we...
Yeah, my recommendation, Your Worship, would be to not, and to do it after the Economic Development Commission has been up and running for a year or two.
Okay.
So there might be if you're making a suggestion, you may wish to recommend that this be referred to the Nanaimo Economic Development Commission for action.
Yes, I'd like to make that recommendation, Your Worship.
Second. Moved and second. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we've got basically right down to question period, agenda items only. Oh, sorry, you had one other one. Sorry.
Under other competent business, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, sorry.
As indicated, May 3rd, 124 years ago, there was a major mine explosion in the city of Nanaimo, and there was 150 miners killed in that explosion. I know in the past, when we had the Bastion in operation, they used to honor those deceased miners by having a flag draped at half-mast on that day. Seeing that the museum at Bastion aren't open at this time of the year, this year, I would, and because we got certain protocol sessions to follow as it relates to the draping of the Canadian flag at half-mast, there's a Nanaimo, it doesn't fall under that category, but I would like to make a motion that the city of Nanaimo, in honor of those deaths 147 years ago, 124 years ago, have the flag at City Hall flown at half-mast for the 24 hours of May the 3rd, 2000.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Councillor Kipp, did you have something? Oh, okay. So, Councillor Pachi?
Just in that vein, I'd like to remind everybody that the South End Community Association is having a commemoration of this event on May the 7th. The miners' commemoration, it's at the foot of Milton, and it starts at 1 p.m., and everybody's welcome to be there.
Thank you. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the flag at City Hall be flown at half-staff for the date, the 24-hour period of the date of May 3. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other competent business that... Go ahead, Councillor Kipp.
Your Worship, regarding the density inflow that we're having now, the new zoning bylaw coming out, I know years back when the first plan will come out, we looked at density from the growth centers or those commercial centers and tried to have density going outward. I know years ago in, say, Calgary, they'd put a dot in the center of the city and they'd infill to those rings, and when that ring got filled, then they would move the density outward. With our new zoning bylaw, our new OCP recently, I would like to know if we could have either a lunch and learn session or a report with some of that about the number of density infills we're looking at now, because I think they're becoming very random and haphazard versus piecemeal growth. And so with our new zoning and with that, I would really like to, I don't know if we need a motion for it or staff prepare a report on what type of density, what's the spread of it, is it going near the growth centers, is it really, are we really steering the density to the areas we need? Because we seemingly are disrupting a lot of neighborhoods with all of a sudden, like we're a single family neighborhood, and I believe in mixed housing and I believe in mixed densities, but are we putting them in the right areas now? Are we tapering down our community and tapering up into the growth areas and that? So I'd like to see if we can get a report on that and possibly a lunch and learn on it. Do I need a motion for that?
I think it's a recommendation. I think staff could probably come back with a thought on it, whether you want lunch and learn or whether there's another vehicle to do it.
Is it understandable, my request?
Your Worship, I think a motion would be important to provide direction.
I just want to make sure this my planning staff's looking at me going, what? Do you understand, like what I'm saying is it seems we're spreading density a little bit, and it goes along with my view on the sidewalks that we require on these zonings, where there's a little piece of sidewalk and then there's no other changes. So our density is going the same with these little chunks of density going all over, and I'm wondering if I'd like to talk about it. Maybe we discuss it as council one time, but I'd like to have something on it.
So why don't you make a motion?
I make it as a motion.
And is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Councillor Oldham.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Could we combine that with, in fact, I think the motion suggests that we combine that with a review of the new or the proposed zoning bylaw. I think it's really important that council understand what's going on there, and it's certainly connected, and it helps to address the concern that Councillor Kipps expressed, which I agree with. I think we need to have that kind of discussion. But I would just like to have it, I think we're already planning to have a discussion with council about the proposed zoning bylaw, aren't we? So maybe we could link the two together. It's just a suggestion.
Councillor Kipp.
Yeah, an example I'll give, even it's a reverse of that, or something. We have some industrial area in the South End plan that is currently industrial land, but it's coming off and in the plan as residential, and it's going to come across as residential zoning. There's current industrial uses in some of those areas. So to look at how that's affecting the infill and the growth in those areas, I think it'd be important.
Okay, and to Councillor Oldham's suggestion about involving.
Absolutely, and if we can involve it in that zoning debate, that would be great.
That could be your motion then? Yes. You would involve both of them?
Added to it.
Added to it, okay. Any further discussion? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I see no other business now, and moving down to question period, agenda items only.
Fred Taylor, 204 Emery Way. In support of Councillor Sherry's excellent idea of lowering the flag at City Hall, could we not include all civic buildings to make it citywide recognition of this? In other words, all fire departments, civic buildings, the RC building for the day? Just to let
That's a valid point, and I think the concern may be that it's tomorrow, basically. This is the second, and yeah, it's a matter of getting notice.
Your Worship, right here now, he'd know. Tell him tomorrow.
Your Worship, we would take the direction from council that would include all city buildings.
Okay, then I think that would be the direction.
And my last question.
If I may, Mr. Taylor.
You're on.
If I may, because of protocol as it relates to the flying of the flag at half-mast, I don't know. And what we got to look at is the federal government protocol. And I think why I suggested that it be the City Hall, okay, until we get such a time as clarified as it relates to under the protocol.
With that, are you indicating like where federal agencies are in the building?
No. There's a federal protocol as it relates to the raising and the lowering of our national emblem. Okay.
But Your Worship, just on that, is that council has adopted the federal protocol as its protocol, and we would take this as a minor amendment to that in this instance only, to lower the flags at city facilities for this day, and I think that's appropriate and fully within council's purview.
If staff's happy with that, I have no problem with it. If the rest of council.
Okay. Is everybody in favor?
I have a delegation from.
Wait, where? Proceed. No, do you have more to add?
One follow-up question.
Okay. Sorry.
And may I ask if we're aware of where most of the remains of these people are?
Well,
Would that be the cemetery on McClary Street?
Well, I think Mr. Taylor, if you contacted an Nanaimo Historical Society. They have access, they direct you to a site where there's a lot of this information contained on the explosion, and I can tell you, reading that article, and that there's still some in the ground where the accident happened that were not recovered.
I believe they're on site, is possible sites. And my reason for the question is because we have the third oldest cemetery in BC, plus a possible site where these miners, some of them could be, that we have not taken the opportunity to declare as cemeteries, and about time we did.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Madam, please come down. Yes. This is going to be an agenda item that you're going to discuss.
Yes, it is. One, I just would like to say thank you very, very much on behalf of the Old City and for rejecting the Wentworth property rezoning. Second item is just a point of clarification on behalf of the Nanaimo Old City Association and the Selby Street mini